Recently, I made a video about 5 microaggressions that black men can experience in the workplace. And today I want to go into a similar topic, and I want to talk about 4 racial attacks that black men specifically experience in the workplace. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's get into it. The big difference between this topic and the previous topic where I talked about the 5 microaggressions that black men experience in the workplace is today I'm going to be focusing more on the systemic aspect of how these types of racial attacks actually show up. And understand that these 4 racially systemic practices that black men experience are things that are rooted deeply in microaggressions, but there's an entire practice and an entire agenda that goes into how these things are done. The first system is what I call little broing. So little broing is this process that precedes the step where they're observing who that black man is. So typically when a black man enters the workplace, they're trying to observe what type of black man he is. So they're trying to figure out if that black man is what I would call a eunuch, or if that black man is what I would call a rebel. And see, what a lot of black men like to do is stay right in the middle. Typically, they stay to themselves. They don't really trip on too much of anything. They don't really bother people. They're not in there being bossy and bullying people and stuff like that. But then they're also not just letting people just do whatever. They stay right in the middle. They try to stay out the way as much as they can. So what a lot of these speculated white supremacists that are in the workplace like to do is they like to take that black man underneath their wing in order to push them over the fence one way or another. And most times, and I mean 99.9% of the time, when they're trying to push them on one side of the fence over the other, they're trying to make them become more of a eunuch. And the reason why is they want that black man to be this buck-broken individual who they can control, they can make do whatever, they can say whatever to them, and they're almost their lapdog who doesn't really have a mind or a voice of their own. They just do what they say. When they little bro a black man, their whole objective is to take that black man underneath their wing so that they can infantilize him, therefore undermining his position and authority. And their usual gateway into doing this is by pointing to their age and presenting themselves as somewhat of a mentor type of figure to that black man, and continuously in every action that they do, going behind them and saying, I've made mistakes like this in my career and you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Every little thing that they do, from a small thing to a big thing, they're always going right behind them and overcorrecting every single mistake that they make. And they make sure to try to do it in front of other people. So it's almost a humiliation ritual. And it's a way to reduce that black man to a smaller shell of who they actually are. The whole idea is to take that black man who is a grown-ass man and reduce him to either being a child or a pet who does as they say and does not have a mind or a voice of their own, which is very key and important in black masculinity. So they want to remove this from that black man. The reason why I say this is a racial attack is because this is something that is typically not done to a white man. As a matter of fact, white men who would be in this specific position are typically allowed to be quirky, different, have these eccentric personalities, and everybody just allows them to do what they do. So they're not treated like children in the way that black men are. And I don't want the all police male supremacists getting in here bitching about how this has happened to me, dude. This has happened to me too, dude. I ain't trying to hear all that. There is a specific plot to target black men in this way in the workplace, point blank, period. The second way that black men are racially attacked is through what I call the intellectual property shakedown. Now, what is that? This is when a black man will exhibit their brilliance, their ability to be innovative, and their ability to be inventive. And they'll create something, some type of process, some type of system, some type of product, whatever it is in whatever workplace you're at. And this will be something that just changes the course of the way things go in that company that they're in. So they'll allow this black man to basically work and toil and create something that just keeps the processes in that job flowing or makes them better. And then when they're finished creating whatever it is that they created, they will shake them down, as in get rid of them from that company. That happens in a lot of these tech companies where you'll have a black worker and he creates something or invents something that was just literally not there before. And then the company that they work for will make sure that they not only claim the rights to that thing, because as that black man is working underneath that company, they basically own that property that's affiliated with them as long as they're working underneath their umbrella. That's a typical protocol. But they'll make sure that they get rid of them as well too in the process, so that they can't reap the benefits of what it is that they actually created. And then they can just turn around later on some revisionist history type of shit and say that it was them and their company that created it. So that black man essentially doesn't even get the credit for the thing that he invented, that his other coworkers had not even thought of before he actually got to the workplace and made that system new or that product pop off. And the sad part about this intellectual property shakedown is that this a lot of times even transcends the workplace. You don't even have to be working for this company or working in the company while you're inventing the thing or creating the thing that you created. If it's something that you created or did or implemented that is interrelated with what that company is doing as a mission and you're employed by them, they can even shake you down when you're trying to get something popping on your own. Or the other thing that they may do, and this is why I say it transcends even the workplace. A lot of times you'll have these black inventors that will create something from an independent basis, and then they'll come up missing, or something happen to them, or they'll be unalive. There'll be all types of stuff going down. And then all of a sudden you hear about these new inventions that these well-known companies will just all of a sudden create, and that they'll claim that they innovated themselves, when oftentimes all they did was shake a black man down who wasn't even on their payroll. The next type of attack is what I call professional muzzling. Professional muzzling is when a black man has his masculinity attacked, specifically in the idea that the dominant society is trying to not allow him to express himself honestly, assertively, and even nitpicks at him when he tries to challenge things that needs to be challenged. And even in more extreme cases, it's just him expressing himself on some normal type of stuff, and then everything he's saying is being overanalyzed, over criticized, and then, he's being nitpicked at every time he even opens his mouth. And this is often done by folks in the dominant society in the workplace, silencing that black man, tone policing that black man, and again, punishing him whenever he is actually assertive. And I'll give you an example, because this is something that I've experienced a lot in my career, even like working in civil rights. So at one of my jobs, I had this white female coworker, and then I had another black female coworker. And the black female coworker was working through lunch and whatnot, and it got later in the day. And she said something like, I'm hungry, I haven't really had the chance to get any food. So I made a simple comment, and I said something that I meant nothing by, like, you should go eat something then. Or I said something to that effect. Didn't say it with any type of attitude. I didn't say it with any type of tone. I didn't really say it in any type of way. And so here comes this white female coworker butting her nosy ass into the conversation anyway, talking about and that's not nice. That's not nice. So she's already talking to me like I'm a child, and she's policing the way that I'm speaking, because I said something very simple to this woman about going and getting something to eat that I, again, meant nothing by. But this is the same white woman who would often walk around being passive aggressive and just had very bad manners in general when she was dealing with other people. As a matter of fact, there was one time it was this black manager who was at this job as well too. And he had called her because he wanted to ask her a question. So he asked her to basically come to his office or whatever. And so when he had called her name, like he had said, "Hey, so-and-so," she was like, "What?" And she kind of said it like in a casual yet kind of a snarky type of tone. And then he quickly, with the quickness, this brother was like, "Don't what me?" Like, so he was like with the business when it came to that type of thing. I also noticed that black leadership was the only leadership that would really check her up front. As far as like white leadership and anybody else who was not black in leadership positions, and specifically over her, they just kind of let her do whatever she wanted to. And then even when black leadership was around, she would kind of pivot between two different personalities. What I noticed is that when she was around black leadership, she would act timid, she would walk on eggshells, and she would often act like she was some type of victim. But then when she would be around black coworkers and individuals who couldn't pull rank on her, weren't in management, and weren't her specific manager, she would be kind of passive aggressive, and she would talk to them in ways that I felt was very condescending sometimes and very belittling. So a lot of times she would go from being this very timid white woman and frail and fragile and talking about how the black coworkers or the black managers are intimidating. And then she would turn into somebody who was just a basic Karen. When it comes to tone policing, the other thing that you need to look out for are these office mammies who they send in there to talk to you real crazy and to treat you like you're a child. Because a lot of times they'll be in there correcting everything that you're saying, getting real sassy, and making sure that every time that you say something, they try to embarrass you. And they almost kind of treat you like you're their child. And it's usually a specific age range. Usually that little office mammy Sam bed is between 40 and 70. And the last method of racial attacks that black men experience that I want to talk about is what I call the glass cliff sacrifice. So this is a lot of times where black men are being piled up with all types of tasks. So there's a difference between doing your job, doing the work that you're supposed to do based on your description, and then being given extra things. And a lot of times there'll be these very unrealistic expectations that'll be set specifically for that black man. And they'll pile all types of things on to the point where it's impossible for them to be able to finish that job. And then they do this thing because the dominant society has this habit of doing what I call the damned if you do, damned if you don't vortex. If you do one thing, then they criticize that thing that you did. And if you do the opposite, they criticize that in a different way. So in other words, if that black man is stacked with impossible tasks or too many tasks, what they'll start doing is saying, well, if they're not able to complete it, then they're incompetent, and that is grounds for firing because it's performance. Or another thing that they'll do is they'll say, like, you know, if he's working over hours or working extra and whatnot, they'll try to make it seem like he's incompetent because he can't finish something that people normally can finish in a required amount of hours throughout the day. So what they'll try to do is they'll nitpick at the way that he's tackling these tasks that are really impossible no matter what he does. So a lot of times they'll give him these responsibilities to set him up to fail. And even if they don't have anything that's immediately going to make him fail based on the loads of responsibilities they gave him, they'll create a paper trail and they'll start looking at other things. They'll say he's disorganized because he has so many tasks. They'll say that he's, someone who's procrastinating, someone who is basically doing a subpar job, and they'll document all the times that he wasn't able to get this task done or that task done. And even when he will go back and he'll say, hey, this is too much for me, and he puts up a boundary, then it's a whole thing of him not being a team player, him not taking on the workload that's expected, and him not being able to do the regular function of the job in the way that other people are able to do it. So again, they get put in a damned if you do, damned if you don't racial vortex a lot of times too, in order to basically get them about the paint. In a previous video, I talked about solutions. And my whole thing was, when it comes to what to do about these types of things, these are systems, because these are things that you have to catch pretty early. And your whole way of maneuvering through the workplace while dealing with these types of things is by implementing boundaries and asking questions. Those are going to be your main two weapons that you can use against these racist attacks. And a lot of times what you're going to have to do on top of asking questions and implementing boundaries is observing the things that are being said, documenting those things, and also preparing yourself in case shit hits the fan, because you may have to lawyer up. You may have to go and you may have to put out a complaint. There may be tons of things that you are probably going to have to do as a result of this mistreatment, especially when you are now fully aware that this workplace that you're at is hostile. For those of you who have gotten this far in this video, I just have one question for you. Out of the 4 different racial attack systems that black men experience, which one have you experienced and how? Feel free to share your story or something that has happened to you or somebody that you know in the comments below. And let's get the discussion started. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future. So make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you like this video, subscribed, shared, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I will talk to you later. Peace out, y'all.